o som do nosso mundo e como o processamos. E esse conhecimento diz-nos que ouvir é mais importante do que pensamos. Alguns acreditam que é a chave para o nosso futuro.
Music is inbuilt within our DNA, within our genes.
Our society becomes faster and faster and faster, and we have to get information out of the environment very quickly. The auditory channel is quicker than the visual channel.
There's big developments happening in technology at the moment, and a lot of people assume that's all about the visual, but if you don't get the sound right, then your sense of immersion completely disappears. Sound walks are a great way of getting to how people react to everyday sounds. So as I go out and about in a normal day, there's lots of sounds I'm not really paying attention to. And I will be taking in my ears, my brain will be taking in unconsciously, but my conscious brain isn't aware of it. Some aspects of our auditory channel are faster than other senses, and that's because we might think of hearing as being something to do with speaking, like I am now in communication, but actually it's an early warning system, and that's what its first evolutionary purpose. Hi there, good to see you. Well, welcome to the Sound Walk. I mean, it's a really noisy place, isn't it? But you wouldn't believe, under these railway arches, there's some most amazing sounds which will amaze you above this wonderful cacophony. Follow me. We'll maybe just have to listen around here and just see what we can hear. Yeah. Comes down the maternal line, baldness, apparently. Why don't you clap your hands to see what you hear?
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a slapback echo, the sort of effect you used to use on old 1950s rock and roll. And actually, I've had a musician here playing guitar, and it's got a great sound effect. But it's just caused by the brick is just keeping the sound here, and actually the sound is probably skimming around the inside of this curve, bouncing off the bottom and coming back, and it's probably also going along the top of the water and coming back again. So you get this amazing contribution of both sounds. The mystery is how is the sound getting across? Is it skimming around the top of the bridge, or is it just going straight and bouncing off the wall and coming straight back to you? Could be both, or could even be both paths.
Yeah.
I think sound can be both about listening and about vibration. So from a purely sort of physical point of view, you can think about acoustic waves, which are vibrations. They don't need someone to listen to actually exist. But actually to be of interest, really, you've got to have someone observing it. So there's got to be an animal, whether that's a human or a bird or whatever, listening to that sound.
I think around the early 90s, I moved from a music listener to explore or experiment with sound. Working on this topic, you realize that it's not really 100% what we're thinking, what is reality existing outside of us. Our brain, it's only delivering the informations we need in order to survive. But you can very much manipulate your brain by giving it attention. You're constantly listening to a soundtrack. It's up to you how much of that soundtrack you want to hear. Sound itself can physically change our behavior in a radical way. It can create moods, it can create a physical reaction in the body, a scream, a noise, a laugh. This is already a language what can communicate so much. We never switch off actually hearing, because everything what is moving, everything what is living has a frequency, has a rhythm. Even if before we are born, we have this experience of sound.
One of the interesting things that I picked up on was how different the arches were, between them all, because they all seemed very similar in makeup and shape and size.
It depends where that focusing point is compared to the ground. If it's above the ground, it's not really that clear. If it's above your head, you don't hear it. But if it's right on the ground, you get this reinforcement where the sound goes down and up and down and up. And those sort of kind of weird acoustic effects, we've probably been listening to for millennia. There's kind of theories that rock art is placed in places where the echoes are particularly interesting. So you go and paint a picture of a figure, and you stand by it and go echo at it, and the sound will come off, and it will look like the person's talk, or sound like the person's.
It's rather strange as an archaeologist to have an interest in music, because the past is, of course, totally silent to us. We know that some of the most elaborate painted panels in the caves are also in the caves where you've got the most dramatic acoustics. So we suspect those paintings were associated with singing, dancing, musicality.
This is a typical train or tram noise, and I wonder what your response is to this. That might be long enough, I think.
So yeah, it's really unpleasant on the ear. How come?
And the theory has it is that those scraping sounds are unpleasant because they sound a bit like a scream. And in our brains, we have a very short response mechanism to deal with danger. That's what our hearing was first of evolutionary, was an early warning system. So you'll find a lot of cities doing things like bringing fountains into squares because it gives you the sound of nature, and you can do things like hide traffic noise with it. And of course, we like the sound of nature. It's good for us. In evolutionary terms, we're used to living not in a city, but out in the countryside. And when there's water, there's going to be food, there's going to be water for us to drink. So we naturally find it a pleasant sound. And what's quite curious about sound is actually sound waves are really weak from a physical point of view. It's really tiny little motions of air molecules. But to us, we can have these big, big emotional feelings responding to this weak little force.
when our early ancestors, going back to maybe 3 million years, communicated with musicality. They did that to express emotions, to manipulate emotions, to build social relationships, because that was before language. So we ask, well, what was all this ability to be receptive to sound? What was it all being used for 500,000 years ago? Well, I think it was being used for making music rather than making conversations like we're doing.
Somos uma espécie social. A audição permitiu-nos construir comunidades e garantir a sobrevivência da nossa espécie através da evolução. A importância das nossas funções auditivas pode ser entendida desde que nascemos.
Babies are like supermen. When babies are born, they are musical. So they can discriminate between the rhythm of their native language and rhythms of other languages. But more interestingly, even at age of 4 days after birth, babies are already crying in the stress pattern of their mother language. The genes had an influence on brain structure that made us, at one point, musical and also able to process language.
I started playing piano when I was 3. I would just emulate sounds that I would hear in the room. And just learning by ear. Overgrown post-apocalyptic house. Take 2. Children are perfect musicians in a way. They have the superior hearing and superior pitch, and then somewhere along the way, if those skills aren't perfected, if they're not worked on, then you lose it. But in its infancy, I feel like we're designed to be these perfectly pitched musical instruments. There's a huge space for innovation within the integration of music and technology that is going to come entirely from the younger generations. I'm really interested in helping young girls, young women get interested in the technological aspects of music making.
Hey Can. Hey Flo. Willkommen. Schön, dass ich da sein kann. Ja. Mit Push zu arbeiten habe ich angefangen ungefähr vor 2 Jahren. Im traditionellen Musikunterricht passiert es sehr oft, dass man Songs, Stücke, Kompositionen einübt und dann versucht nachzuspielen. Und mit dem Computer gibt es eben die Möglichkeit, dass Sie Musik als etwas lernen, das man im Prozess macht, was man selber gestalten kann, wo man selber kreativ werden kann, wo man sich selber ausdrücken kann. Hey, hallo. Cool, dass ihr alle da seid. Super. Ich bin Flo. Hallo. Und ich mache heute so einen kleinen Workshop mit euch mit den Computern. Na dann geht's mal los. Also, Ohne große Worte, ich fange einfach mal an und zeige euch, was man mit dem Ding machen kann. Und nachher seid ihr gleich dran und werdet gleich mal den ersten Beat machen. Sowas. Das muss nicht unbedingt immer die gleiche Art von Musik sein. Machen wir ein bisschen leiser, damit man mich verstehen kann. Das kann manchmal auch ganz anders sein, als man denkt. Oh. Auf jeden Fall seid ihr erstmal dran. Wer will als Erster? Ja, super. Deswegen war es bei dir so laut. Das ist ja geil. Cooler Ruf. Spontane Reaktion drauf, wie war's?
Also ich fand's gut.
Ich könnte mir vielleicht auch sogar stundenlang anhören, weil mir das gefallen hat.
Das ist einfach auch eine Demokratisierung, die da passiert. Also dass eben einfach alle mittlerweile irgendwie mitmachen können beim Musikmachen. Und das ändert auch die Hörerwartungen an das, was da rauskommt dabei. Ich glaube, dass Menschen, wenn sie selber Musik gemacht haben, eben Musik auch ganz anders wahrnehmen.
The whole aspect of making music together. And this social interaction is something that is really important for development. Music is beneficial when it started early on in life. It shapes the auditory system, so children are better able to listen and to perceive subtle differences. It shapes motorics, executive functions, so concentration, memory, these things. So music is a good stimulus.
Also meine Vision für den Musikunterricht wäre, dass er auf jeden Fall stärker das kreative Schaffen von den einzelnen Schülern eben in den Vordergrund stellt. Das schafft eben der computergestützte Musikunterricht sehr gut, weil da eigentlich immer so ein Produkt rauskommt. Ich glaube, dass das Musizieren mit dem Computer absolut die Wahrnehmung verändert und auch noch in der Zukunft die Wahrnehmung extrem verändern wird.
Computers, it's actually demonetizing the music industry. You could actually create an entirely new form of music and genre and way of listening and writing music. And the traditional approach to learning music is not necessary for that process. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go because it's limitless.
Using different methods to see where and when the brain processes music. So there are those methods like functional magnetic resonance imaging, where we put people into the scanner and see which brain areas consume more oxygen, means they are active during listening to music or playing music also. We use methods like electroencephalography, where we have little sensors, electrodes on the scalp to record brain potentials with a millisecond resolution to really tell when things are happening. And we have methods where we stimulate the brain to make one brain area more or less efficient to see which effects this has on music perception and production.
started to play the piano at the age of 3, and my family couldn't imagine that I could be a professional pianist or a professional musician. Since nobody of my family are musician, I realized that the music is a great means for me to have a conversation with the people and to get into the sociality things in the world.
Musicians who use both hands while playing. This is done by the two hemispheres that need to communicate more strongly than in a non-musician. The auditory areas are refined. Musicians are better able to discriminate between two pitches. We were fascinated by how musicians perform on stage, with which speed and accuracy, and how they are doing this. A pianist, when planning piano movements, is always like 5 or 6 tones ahead in his or her mind. We were interested in whether we can influence this planning process, maybe boost this planning process by brain stimulation. Hi. Nice to have you here. Please take a seat. So today we will do an experiment on music production. And while you're doing this, we're gonna stimulate one area in your brain that's located about here.
Yeah.
And to find this area, I will do some neuronavigation with you. Yeah?
Yeah.
What will happen upstairs? So you will see hands of a pianist on the screen playing the piano, playing chord sequences. And your task will be to do exactly the same on the piano, on your own piano, just imitating what you see on the screen, all right?
Okay.
And what we hope to find is that the stimulation indeed boosts performance, boosts the planning processes. So one could take this as a doping for the pianist, but personally I admit I would prefer natural pianists because they are already performing excellently on stage.
I feel like we're very, very close with this whole reverse engineering brain research, and if you can create this blueprint of all of the neural connections in your brain and build a supercomputer that would map all of these functions out, you can send very non-invasive electrical stimulus to your brain and be able to manipulate the emotional state, the mental state. So essentially that's going to change the way that we listen to music, because we won't necessarily need speakers to hear and experience music.
One of the power of music, for example, is that it can have an influence on you and you don't know why. The history of music is not only a happy history. There have been war songs to manipulate, and music has been used for torture, and that's a terrible history.
In England, there's been an interesting development where Marks and Spencer's, a big department store, has decided to turn off music entirely. And they've gone for silence, which is an interesting choice because most shops are using music to manipulate behaviour, and silence will actually harm their sales.
How is it that some external combination of musical sounds has like an emotional impact on human beings. Perhaps there are certain frequencies that are more harmonious with the way that our physical chemistry is, taking my music and switching it from 440 hertz to 432 and like listening to the differences. So on my record, I definitely did that to certain tracks, and some of them sounded and just felt more warm and like more abrasive.
Bound by an attraction, floating on axis around your atlas. You're holding me like gravity all around. You're holding me like gravity, gravity. I can see the void when I drift far away.
What I experienced with the MAFA, a group of people who had never before listened to Western type of music, they hear a musical piece and they immediately realize this is sad, something that seems to be partly universal. In this rituals experience a great musical euphoria. So we came up with this technology where we create music in a way that is physically very challenging. We use fitness. I mean, you already have a number of effects just passively listening to music, but when you actively do it, the effects are approximately double as strong. Jimin decreased their anxiety, which in chronic pain is huge. Furthermore, we found some immunological effects where we find that the monocyte concentration, so a first barrier against infections, is increased after the Jimin. We are basically rediscovering all these effects that have probably played a huge role in the development of human civilization.
Quer a produção de música seja uma experiência individual ou coletiva, quer venha de um pianista clássico, de um cantor pop, de um ritual antigo ou de máquinas desportivas, a música que fazemos reflete-se em perguntas em que ainda não tínhamos pensado. Tudo depende do nosso cérebro.
Music was a first proto-language, probably, but also in our development as persons, we first are sensitive to music and we first start doing music or musical sounds before understanding or speaking like more structured terms. So Brain Polyphony is a project in which we are translating the bioelectrical activity in the brain into sounds we create music through emotions. So the emotions of the brain are translated into a musical language. Part of this project is to provide people with different disabilities like cerebral palsy the opportunity to create music through the activity of their brains.
Sí, aquí estamos viendo la señal del cerebro de Efraín en tiempo real y luego toda esta es la información que analizamos para extraer patrones de valencia y arousal, es decir, si es positiva o negativa la emoción o si es fuerte o es neutra. Podemos ver cómo va cambiando.
Y esto ya es una vez procesado todo lo que me vais a mandar ahora al software de generación de la música.
¿Cómo decides qué música poner en cada momento?
Hay una componente cultural en muchos casos, pero hay una parte que es totalmente innata. O sea, cuando nosotros tocamos notas que están dentro de los armónicos de una nota, eso nos produce una sensación de placer. Cuando nosotros de repente estamos tocando notas que están totalmente desconectadas unas con otras, por decirlo de alguna manera, esto es una sensación de... Vas generando diferentes códigos en función de la sensación que tú quieras transmitir.
The question is, we are now starting to use sounds in different aspects, in musical technology, let's say, but there is still a lot of potential there, and we are not yet using it.
Parece que estamos no início de um futuro empolgante no campo da música e da investigação do cérebro. Usar tecnologia para beneficiar as nossas vidas não é uma novidade, mas nova tecnologia está constantemente a surgir da investigação da forma como a música nos afeta.
I started to take an interest in music when I was about 8 years old. There was a teacher in my primary school and she was very musical and she encouraged everybody in the school to play a brass instrument. From that moment I was hooked, I was fascinated about music. It changed me and it raised my self-esteem and through performing it gave me pride. I thought, what would I be if it wasn't for music? I think I would be quite lost. I have profound sensorineural hearing loss, so that means that the cochlea is not actually working as it should. But without my hearing aids, I hear absolutely nothing. It's complete silence, and with my hearing aids, I hear my own voice. If I'm walking in the city, perhaps on the pavement, and the cars passing by and the people walking past, yes, I can hear just noise. contract. I might be in the countryside, in the field. All I can hear is just the wind that's persistent on this microphone and my hearing aid. It's just...
I started off with music when I was 9 years old. I chose the drums because my granddad used to be a drummer. I used to go to church every Sunday, and every few Sundays there were a celebration band. Music for me expresses what I feel. It shows what I know. It shows me off, especially with my hearing loss. Good girl. Stop moving. With the instrument itself, you get the feel through the whole body. You get the vibrations, different vibrations through the whole body.
Adam has a moderate hearing loss, so it's the varying levels of sound that he hears. He does lip read a lot. His personality started off quite shy, but then he got into the drums and his confidence started to build up because he's joined Music in the Deaf and goes to Yorkshire Music Club. He's also now helping other children in the club because he feels that he's got more to offer. I think with music and being able to communicate through music is a good way to challenge your energies through in order to release the frustrations that you might have by not being able to hear properly. But the idea of music is to incorporate everybody. You can be deaf, you can be hearing, you can be blind, but you can still have that opportunity to play music and create something together as a whole. Adam has become a different person since he's been playing the instruments, and to see him grow through music is quite exciting as a parent to see. It gives him a good start in life to be able to express himself. Adam, do you want to bring the bag? We've got all this to do tomorrow night at Bradford. Bradford, the club, music club is tomorrow night. Thank you.
No Clube de Música, crianças com vários níveis de deficiências auditivas vão usar um novo aparelho tecnológico pela primeira vez para sentir a música de outra maneira. A mochila vibrotátil que usam está ligada a todos os instrumentos na sala, o que lhes permite sentir os outros instrumentos mais intensamente enquanto tocam juntos.
The Subpack is a tactile audio device that allows people to engage physically with music. Anything within the frequency range of 130 Hz on the high end to 5 Hz on the low end, you will be able to physically feel, in effect, bringing you closer to music. lot of people are getting benefit from using it. You know, not just from a creation standpoint, but also a performance and putting across your music in the best possible way, so people are feeling everything.
Feel it. Let me see it. Watch it.
Oh no, yeah, it's going to be.
Oh my god!
You feel this, yeah? You feel
That's crazy.
We are here for a special event. First of all, we've always been using hearing aids, cochlear implants, and now we're going to use those with sub-pack. We need a performance, so we need to make something interesting for everybody to hear and feel. For a DJ.
Yeah,
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Yeah.
I can't feel it.
Maybe.
Have a bit more.
Maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
You haven't seen it.
On the iPad. We need to try the iPad, okay. Do you need more volume?
Yeah. A drum.
Okay.
You can feel the beat, you can feel the rhythm, you can feel the different vibrations going on.
It's better with the pack, so the deaf children and deaf people that can't hear can catch up with the music with vibration on it. It makes me shocked.
It was like it was magic on your back. It's hard to describe. I felt that I could really hear myself.
I'm just very conscious that music is becoming far more digital than ever. Technology is changing, it's becoming more revolutionary. We are going into a new world.
Vivemos num mundo em que todos os sons têm um eco que nos é devolvido. Isso traz-nos conforto, tranquiliza-nos.
The anechoic chamber is well known for being a place which is incredibly silent. Every bit of sound you make just disappears into the wall.
Numa câmara anecoica não há eco. Parece que há algo errado. Sem som ou eco, o nosso sistema de alarme não devia funcionar.
But then you also have the immense silence. So if you shut up in that space, you'll start hearing sounds of your own body. So your brain is continually tweaking the ear to make it perform better.
Podíamos sobreviver noutro planeta? No espaço, o som e o eco funcionam de maneira diferente.
Is the anechoic chamber-like space? It depends what your condition is in space, because actually if you're on a spacecraft, it's quite noisy. So it's not a quiet place, space. I suppose if you went outside the spacecraft and that moment of asphyxiation before you died, I guess you would hear silence a bit like in the anechoic chamber. But I suspect the panic that is surrounding you might mean that's not the last thing you'll be thinking about. There is sound in some places in space. So if you go to Venus or Mars, there's an atmosphere there, and sound waves can travel. Now, the properties are very different on those planets because they're not oxygen-rich.
Sound needs a medium to travel through, so in the absence of a medium, there is no sound. However, it's all relative to what you define as space and what's within the space. There's an entire spectrum of waveforms, so you can use sonification techniques to represent audio in using any of this data, any of these waveforms. I received these really wonderful sonification samples from these researchers at CERN. That was the sound of two black holes colliding. This Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. You have this huge accelerator, so they basically put protons inside, crash them together. So now I can play it over the scale of the Alchemy project was commissioned by Popular Science. Basically, they contacted me and were like, hey, we want you to make a song out of all of these really cool sounds that were collected by these researchers.
Tivemos vislumbre de como o nosso cérebro processa o som e a música, de como os aparelhos tecnológicos podem aumentar a qualidade das nossas vidas e os benefícios que podemos ter enquanto sociedade. Há mais para descobrir tecnologicamente, mas o futuro da audição continua com a evolução humana.
We're still in the very beginning to understand what sound is. I think we have no idea still yet what you can do with sound.
Becoming a little bit more self-aware about us as a musical species has got to be a positive thing in how we're trying to shape our own individual lives.
I definitely feel like music will be, in the future, more into our bodies through the way that we listen to it. So what happens when you can control your emotional state by the click of a mouse? There's probably a lot of good and also a lot of bad.
And once we are able to really translate all the knowledge that we are gathering into real instruments, real tools, it will be a revolution.